I quickly began to realize that the philosophy of the capitalist made more financial sense to me. It seemed to me that the socialists ultimately penalize themselves due to their lack of financial education. No matter what the take from the rich crowd came up with, the rich always found a way to outsmart them. Morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a really good start to the day. Just going to pin myself, and then most of you know that it is a reading with Menno. We are reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was able to actually get it correct on the Zoom as well, so you can actually see the book cover. We are in chapter 4 by this stage. We have just started reading about tax and the history of tax, about Robin Hood. Now, one of Robert Kiyosaki's dads likes the story of Robin Hood and the other one doesn't. And we've had a little bit of a story about taxes and the history of taxes and the thoughts of both of the rich dads around taxes. So we are at the point where we are going to start reading, and then we'll have a chat about how you can watch any episodes that you may have missed. And we'll talk about my comments and thoughts on this chapter throughout. So here we go. We have lots of great things to achieve today. So let's do some reading, get motivated, and then get into our goals. However, the rich saw an opportunity because they don't play by the same set of rules. The rich knew about corporations, which became popular in the days of sailing ships. The rich created the corporation as a vehicle to limit their risk to the assets of each voyage. The rich put their money into a corporation to finance the voyage. The corporation would then hire a crew to sail to the New World to look for treasure. If the ship was lost, the crew lost their lives, but the loss to the rich would be limited only to the money they invested for that particular voyage. The diagram that follows shows how the corporate structure sits outside your personal income statement and balance sheet. So I'll quickly show you the diagram. Oh, there we go. It works on BIGO. It's a little bit harder on the Zoom. Maybe I can do that. No, that doesn't work. But I can explain it. So we have the corporate income statement, and we have the personal income statement and personal balance sheet. And we have a line from the personal assets to the income of the corporate income statement. It then goes and pays the expenses of the corporation, and then it becomes income on the personal income statement. And the expenses on the personal income statement then go to the corporation and become expenses for the corporation. So that means the assets, the personal assets, become income and pay the personal expenses as well. And then whatever is left becomes income on a personal level. It is the knowledge of the legal corporate structure that really gives the rich a vast advantage over the poor and the middle class. Having two fathers teaching me, one a socialist and the other a capitalist, I quickly began to realize that the philosophy of the capitalist made more financial sense to me. It seemed to me that the socialists ultimately penalize themselves due to their lack of financial education. No matter what the take from the rich crowd came up with, the rich always found a way to outsmart them. This is how taxes were eventually levied on the middle class. The rich outsmarted the intellectuals solely because they understood the power of money, a subject not taught in schools. So yes, there are always going to be people who want to find a way to achieve their goals. And there are other people who are going to see if they can stop certain people from achieving their goals. And yet it's this game of cat and mouse. I once saw a very interesting interview by Legrand, and she was a French politician. She ended up going to the European Union Parliament, and I saw this interview that she was doing, and she said, yes, eventually people are going to find a way around the rules, and then we create a new rule in order to be able to stop them from getting away from that rule, and then they'll find another way of doing it, and then we set up new rules to stop them from doing it, and then they find another way to do it, and we set up. She says it's this constant, endless process. And she was obviously a fighter for this process, because she says, we need to do this. We need to stop these people, but they keep finding another way. And so we just play this game and we keep blocking them off, and they find another way, and we block them off and they find another way. Now, whether you think that is right or wrong, the question is, do you want to achieve your goals? And do you want to be held back from doing the things that you want to? Or do you want to find a way to achieve your goals? Do you want to be able to look after your family? Do you want to be able to have a better life? Do you want to be able to do certain things that are going to benefit the world or benefit yourself, or whatever it is that you want to do? Or are you happy to be held back? And that's the question that's being asked here. Not whether it's right or wrong, but are there things that are holding you back? And should they be holding you back, or should you see if you can find a way to be able to achieve them if you morally think that they are right? Because there are always going to be different opinions on what is morally right and wrong. Some people will think that what I am doing, that I think is morally right, that I think is going to be a real benefit, is the wrong thing, and that it is bad. And vice versa, somebody else might be doing something that they think is right, that I think is wrong. Should I really be stopping them from doing what they think is morally right? And now we get into a whole philosophic discussion, but let's not go too deep into that. Let's keep reading. How did the rich outsmart the intellectuals? Once the take from the rich tax was passed, cash started flowing into government coffers. Initially, people were happy. Money was handed out to government workers and the rich. It went to government workers in the form of jobs and pensions, and it went to the rich via their factories receiving government contracts. The government received a large pool of money, but the problem was the fiscal management of that money. The government ideal is to avoid having excess money. If you fail to spend your allotted funds, you risk losing it to the next budget. You would certainly not be recognized for being efficient. Business people, on the other hand, are rewarded for having excess money and are applauded for their efficiency. As this cycle of growing government spending continued, the demand for money increased, and the tax the rich idea was adjusted to include lower income levels, down to the very people who voted it in, the poor and middle class, who were told that they would not be taxed, as we discussed in the last video. True capitalists use their financial knowledge to simply find an escape. They headed back to the protection of a corporation, and that's what saved them. But the middle class and lower income earners who didn't understand about corporations weren't able to use it to protect themselves. And so the idea was that the rich would be taxed and the middle class and the poor would not be taxed. But then, because governments were not very good at managing the money, they started spending more and they needed more tax income. And then the rich noticed that the taxes were going up and up and up, and they had a way to protect themselves. So they protected themselves, and the poor and middle class didn't know how to protect themselves. So even though they were the ones who voted it in because it was promised to them that they wouldn't be taxed, they ended up paying a larger portion. But what many people who have never formed a corporation don't know is that a corporation is not really a thing. A corporation is merely a file folder with some legal documents in it, sitting in some attorney's office and registered with a state government agency. It's not a big building or a factory or a group of people. And if you go to Yahoo Finance and you actually do a search for certain companies, you'll see that it says shell company. So it's just a corporation that is running something else, and it's listed on the stock market, and people can make money on it. You can lose money on it, but it is just a piece of paper. And yet people can trade it, and it goes up in value and down in value, and it does all these different things with nothing behind it. And if you understand that, then you're going to be more careful with shell companies. But if you understand the principles, you are so much more in control. A corporation is merely a legal document that creates a legal body without a soul. Using it, the wealth of the rich was once again protected. It was popular because the income tax rate of a corporation is less than the individual income tax rates. In addition, certain expenses could be paid by a corporation with pre-tax dollars. This war between the haves and have-nots has raged for hundreds of years. The battle is waged whenever and wherever laws are made, and it will go on forever, just like we were talking about. Close a loophole, find another. Close a loophole, find another. The problem is that the people who lose are the uninformed, the ones who get up every day and diligently go to work and pay taxes. If they only understood the way the rich play the game, they could play it too. And it's true. Anybody that doesn't understand this can do some research and can very easily start setting these things up as well. Yes, maybe you need a little bit of money, but that's, again, the more you're educated, the easier it becomes to be able to start putting something together. Actually, speaking of that, this morning I was in my Vibe, and there was a quote that was very relevant. I'm just going to quickly read it to you. No matter how hard the past is, you can always begin again. And one thing that I used to do, a lot of people have New Year's resolutions. And so we go out and we celebrate New Year. And then we say, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to eat more healthy. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do X. I'm going to look after my finances. But by the time February comes around, most of those are completely forgotten and we no longer do any of them. But what you can do is make sure that you do this every day. So yes, maybe today I eat the wrong food or I have not looked after my finances, but I can do a New Year's Day tomorrow. And I can once again say, okay, I'm going to get back on the horse. So yesterday I ate the wrong food and I didn't look after my finances, but today I'm going to pay attention to them again. And then the day after, I'm going to pay attention to them again. And so, yes, I might have some slip ups, but rather than a resolution, which is really, really like setting the bar for a whole year, now you're only setting the bar every time for one day. One day is much easier to achieve than a whole year. So if you do this constantly, every single day, it becomes much easier for you to achieve those goals. And this also means that you can forget the past, and every day is a new day for new opportunities and new beginnings to make a change and take a step forward rather than focusing on what wasn't going right in the past. This is why I cringe every time I hear a parent advise their children to go to school so they can get a safe, secure job. An employee with a safe, secure job without financial aptitude has no escape and also is not going to be able to understand how to play in the marketplace. So at their work, they might get bullied. They might also make financial blunders. They might not know how to play the office politics and will also not be able to get raises and get ahead. So the more you learn, I don't know how to stress this more thoroughly. The more you learn, the more you're going to be in control of everything in your life. So make sure that you learn and study and pick up as much as you can, because everything that you learn is going to add to your ability to get things done. Average Americans today work 4 to 5 months for the government just to cover their taxes. In my opinion, that is simply too long. The harder you work, the more you pay the government. That is why I believe the idea of take from the rich backfired on the very people who voted it in. Every time people try to punish the rich don't simply comply, they react. They have the money, power, and intent to change things. They don't just sit there and voluntarily pay more taxes. Instead, they search for ways to minimize their tax burden. They hire smart attorneys and accountants and persuade politicians to change laws or create legal loopholes. They use their resources to affect change. So I think that's a powerful spot to leave that at. Make sure that you educate yourself as much as possible. The more you know, the more you can use it. I remember when I was at university, there used to be a pass mark. I think you needed 55% to pass. And I remember there were kids at school who would only study half of the textbooks. And they said, well, I only need 55%. So if I study half the textbooks, then I'll be set. Notwithstanding the fact that you probably need a little bit more information in case you get a couple of those wrong because you haven't remembered them. But on top of that, if you only study half the textbooks, what happens if you need some information in real life from one of those textbooks that you haven't read? Let's say you don't read the marketing textbook and then you want to start your own business and then you don't know about marketing. Every single thing you learn is like something that it's like information that you put into your backpack. And the more you have in your backpack, the more knowledge, the more information, the more you know about things, the more you can use those to be able to get ahead. So take the opportunity to fill your backpack with as much as possible. You never know which piece of information or what is going to help you get ahead. And sometimes you'll be surprised. Something you think you will never use in your life will suddenly come and be a really important factor to you being able to achieve your goals. So that is another part of Chapter 4, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I am sure you got a lot out of that. That was a very, very powerful section. So make sure you go out and learn a lot. And speaking of that, if you've missed a part of Rich Dad, Poor Dad's reading with my commentary, and you'd like to make sure you don't do what the students at my university did and only study half of it, but actually get to see the whole thing, you can go to YouTube at the Passive Cash Flow Club and you'll find all the recordings. Make sure you hit subscribe. Yesterday, I also finished recording a video on how much should I invest? how much of my savings, how much of my income should I invest? So we've got a video coming up on that one. It's a question I get asked by a lot of people. Should I invest 10% of everything that I have? Should I invest everything? Should I invest a different kind of percentage? What should I invest it in? I discussed that in one of these videos. So make sure you hit subscribe and you'll know when that video is uploaded as well, and you can watch that one. Now, I also run the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad Cash Flow Board Game Club here in Sydney, but it's now international because, yes, we used to run events offline where you'd be able to play the game itself. And we are thinking of starting to do that again at some stage. But we also have an online version, which is even more powerful because we put more realism into it. So all of this chapter that we were talking about, making sure that you learn as much as possible, this version also includes things above and beyond what the game does on taxation and how things work in real life. There are more detailed cards to explain real estate. So regardless of whether you're into stocks, real estate, or business, you'll be able to learn more from the online version. And it excites me so much to see the comments and what everybody was saying at the last game, talking about the fact that they were able to learn so much that they can now go and implement. And implementation is the really, really important part. And that is my goal in 2022, to see more people implement. So if you'd like to know more about that, or if you'd like to see what I'm up to on Instagram, or get in touch with me and discuss topics about Rich Dad Poor Dad, then I would love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram at business_team_6_official. And then you can send me a personal message as well as seeing what I'm up to through the images, obviously. And if you want to know more about cash flow, get in touch for sure. And I will get my VA, my virtual assistant, to send you some information on how you can join. And we would love to have you. And I love seeing people not only play the game, learn the game, but actually start investing, or if they are already investing, look for smarter ways to do it by surrounding themselves by like-minded people who are already investing and have different things that we can share that might be better than the way that you are doing it, because you might be happy with your return, but wouldn't you be happier with an even better return? So go out and have a wonderful day today. I really appreciate you joining. I am very, very humbled that people want to come and listen to my commentary on Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm looking forward to meeting you. So get in touch. I would love to hear from you through Instagram, and go out and achieve some of those goals today. And I will see you for another reading tomorrow, Sydney time at 8 a.m.